I'm Seth Clevenger, Managing Editor of Features at Transport Topics, joined with Josh Switkes, founder and CEO of Peloton Technology, a company that is working on a truck platooning system that is ready to preparing to roll out later this year. So, Josh, I want to go ahead and talk to you about where things stand now. After years of development and testing and research, you guys are now on the verge of launching your platooning system commercially. So can you go ahead and give us an update on where that stands?
Yeah, we're excited. You know, as you mentioned, we're finally close to launching the system as a commercial product and bringing it to fleets like you know, many of your members and readers and listeners. We've been working on it, as you mentioned, for several years, and that's because this is really a safety critical system. So we've been putting a lot of effort initially into prototyping it, improving the fuel savings, and then into commercializing it, meaning making sure it is safe to use out on the roads that all of our customers, all of your readers, drive on every day. This is a system that can dramatically improve the safety of trucks, but to do so, we have to make sure the engineering is done properly, the testing is done properly, the validation is done properly, both by us and by the truck OEMs and brake suppliers we're working with to make sure this is a truly safe system. We've also been putting a lot of effort into the user experience, the experience of the drivers, to make sure that it's a system that can really assist them in their driving task. That's important partly for the drivers themselves and partly also for safety, to make sure that they can interact with the system and operate it safely.
Sure. And are you still targeting, the end of the year to begin sort of the first filling of the initial orders for the system?
Exactly. That's right. And as you mentioned, we do have some initial pre-orders from some customers, and we'll start filling those orders at the end of the year. And then the real, major rollout in large quantities will be through next year.
Okay, great. Looking forward to seeing that. And just to give your customers, future customers, a heads up on how this will all work, do I understand correctly that fleets will pay for the system based on the miles that they actually platoon? Could you explain how that works?
Yeah, that's right. So primarily they pay based on each mile they platoon. There is an upfront cost for the system, and that cost is roughly our cost to build it. So we're not making any money off of the hardware or installation. And then what happens is you get free platooning until you've saved fuel equal to the amount you paid for the system. So that gives you a very rapid payback period. And then after that time period, you pay a portion of the fuel savings that we negotiate with you in the sales process. And you only pay that when you're platooning. So you're only paying when you're saving. And our approach here really is to form a partnership with the fleets, so that they want to platoon more and we want them to platoon more, because we're both benefiting the more miles that are platooned.
Okay, got it. And earlier this year, Peloton formed a partnership with OmniTracks, fleet telematics provider, and of course that's going to help facilitate platooning for shared customers, including for trucks that are operated by different fleets. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that will work?
Yeah, so we're excited about the partnership with OmniTracks. As you mentioned, there are different ways to roll out platooning in your fleet. For many customers, they can platoon within their own fleet. They have multiple trucks heading on the same lane, maybe scheduled every day on that lane. They have 2 or 6 or 10 trucks, and they can platoon that entire distance together. Others, they may start out together and then they branch off to different destinations, but they can still platoon within their own fleet. But for other customers, they need to really roll this out at scale. They need to platoon with other fleets. I should mention that there's a number of safety aspects of our system that make sure it is safe to platoon with other fleets, including things like knowledge of the braking ability of the trucks to make sure that the back truck can brake at least as well or better than the front truck, other maintenance standards that we enforce on the fleets, et cetera. So we recognize it's sort of a big step to say, let's platoon with a different fleet, but we think fleets will find that very valuable for exactly the reason you mentioned, that that can create platooning opportunities where they might not exist within a single fleet. The OmniTracks partnership is a great way to, in a couple of different ways, to create those platooning opportunities. And there'll be more details in the coming months on the specifics of how OmniTracks customers will get these features. But it's going to be features around dispatch timing, around routing, around other aspects of logistics to help create these platooning opportunities. So you can imagine adjusting the time when a truck leaves so that as it gets onto the highway, it's near another platooning equipped truck. You could imagine changing the routing to have a truck travel near another platooning equipped truck. Things like this that can create those platooning opportunities with minimal impact to the operation of the fleet. Those are the types of things we're developing with OmniTracks.
Okay, and of course with platooning and starting with the 2-truck platoons that you guys are rolling out, the fuel economy gains are stronger for the rear truck, the following truck, on the order of 10%, I believe, is the figure that you guys have been using, and 4.5% for the lead truck. The question is, are you guys going to have a mechanism in place to more evenly share the benefits of platooning for both trucks, so you don't have a situation where you have 2 trucks who both want to be the follower?
Yeah, so the answer is yes, but even before that, it's important to realize that we don't give the driver the choice of whether they are the front truck or the rear truck. The system, because of safety requirements, the system makes sure that the better braking truck is in the back. If they're very similar in braking, we just make a choice and enforce that on the driver. So the driver doesn't get to choose. This is to make sure there's no jockeying for position, right? So when our cloud service approves platooning, it tells that driver, you're approved to platoon with this other truck, you will be the front truck. And then it only lets that platooning start when they're in the correct configuration there with the correct truck in front, correct truck in back. That being said, then to the benefit question, as you mentioned, the savings is stronger for the back truck. How we handle that is we charge as a percentage of the fuel savings. So if you're a front truck, you're paying a percentage of that front truck savings. If you're a back truck, you're paying a percentage of that back truck savings. So it doesn't quite even out the benefit for front and rear trucks, but you're paying, again, based on the benefit you're getting. For most fleets, it'll even out. There'll be, front truck roughly half the time, back truck half the time. There may be some fleets where that's not the case, but in general, it'll average out.
Okay. And I think it's important to remind viewers that the Peloton system at launch will be a 2-truck platooning system, and both trucks, of course, still have a driver, and both drivers are still steering. It is automating, acceleration and deceleration, so adaptive cruise control essentially. Now, looking into the future, though, once you launch this initial product and look to the future, are you still interested in expanding your system to perhaps 3 or more trucks, and adding additional automation, at least to the rear truck?
Yeah. So the answer to both is yes. But it's important to realize that we are focused on providing value, meaning operational savings to fleets. And so we're excited that we can get platooning to them now with 2 trucks. We're validating the system, developing and validating the system for pairs of trucks only today. In the future, once we have validated for safety, we can move on to longer platoons where the fuel savings will be greater. But we're starting with just 2 trucks. And we're starting with a system, as you mentioned, where the driver is fully in control of steering. They're in command of their truck. We're just assisting them with this very responsive platooning system that keeps them at this constant distance safely. We've talked with fleets about higher levels of automation, and really their interest is when that can reduce their operational expenses. So what that means is helping save on labor, helping save on other aspects of logistics. They're not interested in sort of a additional steering assistance that doesn't actually provide operational savings. If it provides operational, fuel savings, labor savings, or safety benefit, that's where we're interested. We're focused on those 3 areas. So yes, we're working on future systems that have additional automation to save in those categories, but we will only roll those out when they are fully validated and fully safe and provide benefit to the fleets.
Okay. Well, thank you for that guidance. And maybe a similar question along the same line of thought. Do you see truck platooning as kind of an entry or a gateway in some respects to more automation in trucking? Platooning, I think, is best viewed as a highly complementary technology to certain forms of higher automation. As separate but complementary. But do you see this as being, perhaps a gateway to more automation, perhaps things like autonomous highway driving, and on from there?
Yeah. So the way I normally talk about this is, is to reiterate, the kind of the three areas of benefit that we aim to provide, and that's fuel savings, that's labor savings, and that's safety benefit or safety savings. Platooning provides fuel savings and safety benefit. It helps the driver, but it doesn't really provide labor expense savings. So in that sense, yes, it's a step along the way to additional automation. From a technology standpoint, also, there's a lot of things that still have to be figured out for next steps of automation, both on the truck itself as well as on the sensor and control side of technology that would be added to the truck. And platooning is a step towards figuring out how to make these types of systems safe. That being said, I hesitate to call it just a step along the way because it's a system that can provide a lot of value today. So let's say it's a very valuable step that fleets can deploy to really transform their operation in terms of the significant fuel savings they can deploy today.
All right, Josh. Another question I think that comes up whenever we discuss higher levels of automation in trucking is the future of the truck driver. The OEMs remain adamant that the driver is absolutely essential to trucking for the foreseeable future. Most of their suppliers are very much see the world that same way. But you also see some of the technology startups getting into this. You see companies like Uber that are really focused on autonomous highway driving as the next step for them. And that does kind of raise the question of what's the future of the driver in the industry. Wanted to get your take on that from your point of view at Peloton.
Yeah, so I want to first point out, of course, that platooning itself, there's still a driver, they're steering, they're in command of their vehicle, but it is an important question for the future. And the way we look at this, every fleet we talk to talks about the driver shortage, right? There's a huge shortage of skilled drivers. A lot of fleets say, they would carry more loads if they could just find more drivers, right? That's really the limiting factor for them. And it's projected, of course, to grow, the driver shortage to grow over time as overall freight movements grow, as trucking share of freight grows, and as fewer drivers are coming into the workforce. So the way we see it is, yes, over time, automation will reduce the number of drivers needed. But for the foreseeable future, that's just going to slow down the growth of the shortage. Eventually, it'll reduce the driver shortage. The time in the future when there are fewer drivers needed than the amount of drivers that we have today is far off. So what that means is the drivers who are working today are not going to be put out of work by automation, but there will be fewer drivers entering the workforce, which is already happening. So we see it as more looking on the positive side of the drivers today are going to become more skilled, more high-level operators of the trucks. They will continue to be critical, given their knowledge and experience and skill at driving. Continue to be critical for the rest of their career, while the industry gets more efficient through automation.
Okay, well, thank you for your take on that, and I think that does help kind of put this all in perspective because it is a question that many are asking, many are wondering about, and it's important to kind of remember where the industry stands in terms of current availability of labor and the struggles. Okay. So, with that, I've got run to the end of my questions. But is there anything else you'd like to add on this rollout and kind of after really going through a few years of this now. You guys are kind of right on the verge of releasing this to the market as a whole. Any other thoughts on where you guys are headed and where the future will take us?
Maybe I just reiterate one more time. Probably a lot of your readers hear a lot about various vehicle automation technologies and safety concerns about those and so on. I'll just reiterate the extreme amount of effort we're putting into the safety validation and our excitement that this can dramatically increase the safety of these trucks. And we're excited to roll out the system and start showing that. Showing that based on statistics of the deployed system, showing that we've done our job correctly over these past several years to make the system truly safe and truly effective for the fleets.
All right, great. Well, Josh, thank you very much for your time. I appreciate the insights, and we'll all be watching with great interest as you guys move along this process. So thanks again.
My pleasure. Thanks, Seth.